All right, first and foremost, we want to give all praises, honor, glory to the Most High, Yahweh, in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world knows as Jesus Christ. His name is Yahweh Shai in the Hebrew. Welcome to another Sabbath day class. All right, I want to welcome you and your families and your loved ones, each and every one of you joining us right now for this class. The divine numbers of the Creator. Now, last week we had a very power-packed, heavy class. For those of you that did not check it out, you better subscribe to the channel now. Go back, check it out right now. Do yourself a favor. All right? It was called Secrets in the Covenant. Lots of revelation. Lots of spiritual edification coming out. Some of it may be too, if depending on the level where you're at in this truth, you may need to rewatch it again, no problem. All right? The Most High prepares us for revelation down the road. All right? So, today's class, the divine numbers of the Creator. Now, why do numbers matter to the Most High? All right? Why? Does he just throw numbers out there? Is it just that he just random with the numbers when you read the Bible? Now, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he doesn't just use numbers. He speaks in them and he speaks through them. I want you to understand. He speaks in numbers. Now, divine numerology, it's not mysticism or spookism, as some persons may think. It's actually divine structure. It's actually divine intelligence. So now God is not random. Always remember this. God is not random. The universe, it's measured. You can't measure it, but it is measured. He measured it. Scripture is also measured. And so is your life. Your life is measured. These things you may not have the answer to, but the Most High has the answer to those things. Remember that. Your life is measured. He knows the measurement of your life. The universe is also measured. He measured it. He created it. He made it. He forged it with His word. Everyone understands? So now, if you don't understand numbers, you will not recognize the blueprint of your own nation's deliverance and your own deliverance. Again, if you don't understand numbers, you will not recognize the blueprint of your own nation's deliverance and your own deliverance. So now when we go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 4, it clearly shows you the Most High speaking in that singularity form to show you the importance of why numbers matter. Let's get that. The book of Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 4.
Reading from the book of Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord.
It says the Lord our God is one God. One God. Okay? It says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. This is talking about the singular nature of God. Oneness, authority, uniqueness, singularity. In other words, there is no other God, no rivals, no equals, nothing that can equate. Singularity. The Lord our God, He is one Lord. So, you would find that even in the book of Isaiah chapter 45 verses 5 to 6, it says, I am the Lord and there is no other. Besides me there is no God. I will equip you, though you do not know me, that people may know. Oneness, singularity. No rival or equal. There is no God next to God. So I want you to understand, when it comes to that number one, you see it coming out in the Bible, that number one, and it's in reference with the Most High, it goes into His singular nature, His uniqueness, His authority, His unequatable, cannot be matched, cannot be equaled, cannot be rivaled. Understand that. Even in the book of Genesis, chapter 2 and verse 24, where it mentions, therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall hold fast to his wife, they shall become one flesh. One flesh. Follow me, everyone. One flesh. So when it comes to oneness, singularity, right? That authority. Okay, question. When Adam and Eve, the Most High joined them together, the two flesh became what? One. What did God give to Adam and Eve? He gave them what? Dominion, authority. Follow me. So the Most High is not random with numbers. Two flesh shall become one, singular. It goes into authority. It goes into dominion. God himself is one. He has the dominion. He has the ultimate dominion, singularity. There's no God next to him. Two flesh become one. God gave Adam and Eve what? Authority, dominion. Follow me, Israel. Don't let this go over your heads. Okay? So now, Adam and Eve were given authority, even when it comes to the place of worship, when it comes to the temple. All right? Throughout the book of Deuteronomy, and later on in the establishment of the temple in Jerusalem, you can see an emphasis on having one central place of worship. Follow me. It signifies God's singular claim over worship, that he retains worship for himself. Central place of worship. It signifies that claim of his worship. Okay? And also the Israelites' unified devotion to him. So one central place for worship, one single people that worships him in that place. Okay? That singularity is reserved for him and him alone. That's why you couldn't go any other place other than the temple to do what? To do sacrifice. To do worship. He didn't set up multiple places. One central place. We're talking about when they were given the land. Okay? Prior to that, they had altars where the Lord would instruct them to go to a specific altar to offer sacrifice. It's prior to the temple. All right? So now, numbers. Again, God is very strategic. He's very calculated when it comes to numbers. If anybody ever wondered even why a baby stays in the womb for the time that it does, the book of 2 Ezra chapter 4 and verse 40, it shows you how long a baby stays in the womb. Let's get that. 2 Ezra 4 and verse 40.
Reading from the book of 2 Ezra chapter 4 and verse 40. So he answered me and said, Go thy way to a woman with child, and ask her when she had fulfilled her 9 months, if her womb may keep the birth any longer within her.
If her womb may keep the birth any longer within her. You see, you have to understand that the Lord made the womb to hold that baby for a specific period of time. Now, for any of you that know math, 9 months is equal to how many weeks? How many weeks? No one knows? 40 weeks. Okay? Roughly 40 weeks. So the Most High is not random. He doesn't just throw numbers out there. It's not just, oh, I'm going to just choose this number because I want this. No, he has specific meaning behind each number for everything that he chooses. Why a baby stays in the womb for 9 months. Now, the number 40, when you read the Bible and you understand and you have deep insight and revelation, you will see that it's associated with periods of testing, periods of judgment, periods of purification, periods of preparation, and periods of divine completion. Divine completion. Leading to a new beginning. 40. All right? That number 40. Okay? So now, a period of divine judgment and purification that wiped out wickedness, leading to a new beginning for humanity. That happened through who? Noah. How long did it rain for when the Lord was cleansing the earth? Who remembers how long it was raining for? 40 days, 40 nights. Cleansing. Purification. Okay? So that number 40, again, is very significant. Okay? Moses on Mount Sinai. Moses spent 40 days and 40 nights on Mount Sinai twice. The first time and the second time. Okay? He received the 10 commandments and the instructions for the tabernacle and a period of intense divine revelation. He was preparing the covenant that the Most High gave him to give to the nation of Israel. Understand that. The Most High didn't just pull that number out of thin air of why Moses should spend 40 days and 40 nights. It was divinely calculated because it was a period of preparation as well. So a baby being in the womb 40 weeks, Noah being on the waters in the ark 40 days, 40 nights, Moses being on Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights, twice, preparing to receive the covenant to give to Israel. Also, when you find that Israel's wilderness wanderings, the Israelites wandered in the wilderness for how long? How long? 40 years. Now, when you go to the book of Numbers, chapter 14 and verse 33 and 34, it shows you, right? This was a period of divine judgment due to their disobedience, a test of their faith. A time of preparation for the generation of what would enter to be the promised land. Okay? What about Moses' age? Moses' age was what? 40 years old when he fled Egypt after killing an Egyptian. Okay? So when you read Acts 7 and 23, it will show you that. Then he spent another 40 years in Midian before being called by God. All right, you can find that in Acts 7 and 30. Now, this marks two 40-year periods of preparation for Moses before his ultimate mission. Follow me. Yahushua, Christ, he was tempted in the wilderness. He was tempted, okay, for 40 days and 40 nights. When you read the book of Matthew 4 and verse 2, all right? Let's read that. Matthew 4 and verse 2. Let's get that. Matthew 4, verse 2. Matthew chapter 4, verse 2.
Reading from the book of Matthew, chapter 4 and verse 2. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward and hungered.
See that? So he was fasting. He was being tested. Okay? Understand this. He had to prepare before he began his public ministry. The Most High didn't just put that on his spirit to fast for that amount of time. He was preparing for something. So that number 40 is very significant. All right? So now, even when Christ died and was resurrected again after his appearance, all right? He appeared to his disciples for 40 days. Before his ascension into heaven. There was a period of teaching, confirming his resurrection, and preparing them for the coming of the Holy Spirit so he can start the church. Okay? So now when you go to the book of Acts chapter 1 and verse 3, we'll see that number coming out again. Let's get that. The book of Acts, chapter 1 and verse 3.
Reading from the book of Acts, chapter 1 and verse 3. To whom also he showed himself alive after his passion by many infallible proof, being seen of them 40 days, and speaking of things pertaining to the kingdom of God.
Being seen of them 40 days and speaking of the things pertaining to the kingdom of God. He was teaching, preparing them so they can start the church. Follow me. 40 is always that period of testing, that period of preparation. Okay? So the Most High doesn't just throw numbers out there. All right? Now, even when we go to the book of Genesis, chapter 22 and verse 3, all right? Abraham, when he was asked to sacrifice his son, you would find that when he saw the place that he was asked to sacrifice his son afar off, right? How many days it was? Let's get that. Genesis chapter 22 and verse 3. So we go into the book of Genesis chapter 22 and verse 3.
Reading from the book of Genesis, chapter 22 and verse 3. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son and cleared the wood for the burnt offering and rose up and went unto the place which God had told him.
So Abraham was following instructions, preparing this place where he would give a burnt offering, which would be his son. Let's get verse 4.
Verse 4. Then on the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar.
Abraham lifted up his eyes on the 3rd day. So that number 3, it actually took them 3 days to travel to Mount Moriah. Now that 3 represents a period of intense spiritual and mental preparation for Abraham as well. So that number 3 goes into divine intervention and resolution. That 3rd day is the climax of when the test occurs. And crucially, you would see God intervening on that 3rd day. Follow me? So Genesis 22 is a profound foreshadowing of Christ's resurrection on the 3rd day. Okay, so in a spiritual sense, Isaac was given back to Abraham from the Most High, right? From the brink of death, symbolizing a resurrection. Okay? Symbolizing a resurrection. Let's get that. In the book of Matthew, chapter 12 and verse 40. You're going to see that 3 coming out again.
Reading from the book of Matthew, chapter 12 and verse 40. For as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth.
See that? He shall be 3 days and 3 nights in the earth. Okay? So divine intervention happens after 3 days. The Most High uses that 3 to show that he will intervene on the 3rd day. Follow me? So he doesn't just choose numbers randomly. It's all through the Spirit and divine calculation of the Most High. Okay, so that foreshadowing of Christ's resurrection on the 3rd day, how Isaac, which was Abraham's son, was given back to Abraham from the brink of death. And we see that in Matthew 12 and 40, the Son of Man would spend 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So, divine validation and authority. Yahushua presents his 3 days and 3 nights in the tomb as the ultimate sign, validating his messiahship and divine authority. It's proof that he is who he says he is. It's proof that whoever he claimed he was that. And he wasn't just making claims, sanctioned by God. Okay? So it shows you completeness. Completeness of salvation. All right? So the resurrection on the third day, it completes the work of salvation. Without any resurrection, faith would be futile. Again, without that resurrection, faith would be futile. All right? Give me 1 Corinthians 15 and 17. 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 17. Let's get 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 17. So we got to understand. 3, it signifies the complete and perfect plan for redemption. Divine intervention, divine redemption. 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 17.
Reading from the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 17. And if Christ be not raised, your faith is vain.
If Christ be not raised, your faith is in vain. Read on.
Ye are yet in sins.
So, why did Christ die? For the redemption of your sins. If he didn't die, there's no redemption for sin. But he rose again after how many days? 3. Divine completeness of salvation, divine redemption, when the Most High uses that number 3. Okay? Also, it's also used when you see prayer and fasting happening as well. Other periods of spiritual intense activity is marked by 3. Example, Daniel praying 3 times a day. Paul's 3 days of blindness and fasting after his conversion. Okay? You see key declarations and commands coming out. All right? The Most High speaks or acts in 3s. Example, before the throne. Right? How the elders are saying what? Holy, holy, holy. Understand that. This ain't just random numbers the Most High has ordained. Okay? So now, when it goes to Isaiah 6 and verse 3, right? And also Revelation 4 and 8, even when Peter actually denied Christ 3 times before his resurrection, right? It's all very significant. Out of all the feasts listed in Leviticus 23, there's 3 major high holy days out of all of them. Okay? Who knows what those 3 are? It's the Passover, Pentecost, which is Feast of First Fruits, and the Feast of what? Tabernacles, right? 3 high holy days. Okay? So, in 3 annual pilgrim tests or feasts for Israel, it represents complete cycles of divine interaction, of salvation for the Israelites. Okay? So now when it comes to the number 4, you will also see that coming out as well in the scriptures. Now the number 4 goes into earthly creation, universal order. All right? 4 directions, 4 winds, 4 beasts, 4 rivers in Eden, 4 corners of the earth. All right? The 4 angels that hold back the winds in Revelation 7 and verse 1. Let's get that. Revelation 7 and verse 1. Revelation 7 and verse 1.
Reading from the book of Revelations, chapter 7 and verse 1. And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth.
4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth.
Holding the 4 winds of the earth.
Holding the 4 winds of the earth.
that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree.
See, the number 7 is dealing with what? Perfection, covenant completion. Okay? Creation was finished in how many days? 7 days. All right? The Sabbath is on which day? Seventh day. How many seals you have in Revelation? 7 seals. How many trumpets you see in Revelation? 7 trumpets. How many churches? 7 churches. The Most High didn't just choose numbers for the sake of choosing. Okay? So this goes into covenant completion, divine perfection, that number 7. Okay? So why does God speak in numbers? Consistency, order, and covenant. Again, consistency, order, and covenant. And he's a God of consistency. He's a God of order. And he's a God of covenant. That's why he speaks in numbers. Don't let this go over your head. All right? So creation was finished in 7 days. Let's get that in Genesis 2 and verse 2.
Reading from the book of Genesis, chapter 2 and verse 2. And on the 7th day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made.
So on the 7th day he ended his work, and on the 7th day he rested from all his work which he have made. You understand that? So when it comes to that number 7, it goes into creation, perfection, divine, actual. When it comes to creation and creationism by the Creator, that perfection is personified through the number 7. I want you to understand this. Even when you go to the book of Tobit, right? You see those 7 angels, and Raphael saying he's one of the 7 angels. So if the Most High created those 7 holy archangels, let's get that. Tobit chapter 12 and verse 15.
Reading from the book of Tobit, chapter 12 and verse 15. I am Raphael, one of the 7 holy angels, represent the prayers of saints, and which go in and out before the glory of the Holy One.
You see that? So he's one of the 7 holy angels, which present the prayers of the saints, which go in and out before the glory of the Holy One. One of the 7 archangels. It ain't no coincidence why he created 7 of those. Divine creation, divine completeness. All right? So now, when it goes into the number 10, all right? 10 is representative of law, government, and responsibility. All right? That's why the commandments are summarized into how many commandments? 10 commandments. It doesn't mean that there are only 10 commandments, but they're summarized into 10. Because all of the law hang on the 10. All of the other commandments hang on the 10. Because they're split into either love for God or love for who? Your brother and your sister. It's split into 2. Okay? So everything that you will do for God, the high holy days, the things that he asks you to do, the things that directly speak to him, those are summarized in your love for God. Your love to your brother and your sister, those are summarized in the others. No adultery, no stealing, right? Don't lie one to another. Honor your father and your mother, right? Don't covet anything. So half deals with love for God, but it's completion. 10 deals with, again, law, government. You're going to see that coming out as well. and responsibility. Even in Egypt, how many plagues were there? 10 plagues. The Most High didn't just throw numbers out there. 10 plagues in Egypt. Daniel had a test of 10 days in Babylon. So whenever the number 10 appears in the divine context in the Bible, it signals a period or set of actions that represent a complete measure of something, a complete measure. Whether it's divine judgment, law, testing, responsibility, or divine order. Follow me? Even in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verse 4, okay, you would see Moses here summarizing these 10 commandments. Let's get that. Deuteronomy 10 and verse 4.
Reading from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 10 and verse 4. And he wrote on the tablets, according to the first writing, the 10 commandments, which the Lord spoke unto you in the mount out of the midst of the fire, in the day of assembly. And the Lord gave them unto me.
So the Lord gave them unto him, these 10 commandments. He wrote them on tables. Okay? Yes, there were other commandments, but these are summarized into the 10. So it goes into law, it goes into government, all right? When it comes to divine completion, when something is complete, all right? When you read in Exodus chapter 7 about the 10 plagues in Egypt, all right? Who's familiar with those 10 plagues? The Most High had to do what? Dismantle the Egyptian government, okay? Before our own government was set up, once we passed through that Red Sea and given that land that he promised to give our forefathers, the Egyptian government had to be dismantled. Those 10 plagues came as divine completion to do what? Dismantle the Egyptian government. Okay? So now, let's get one of those plagues in Egypt. Exodus 7. Let's get a couple of those plagues. Exodus chapter 7. You could start me from 21.
Reading from the book of Exodus chapter 7 verse 21. And the fish that was in the river died, and the river stank, and the Egyptians could not drink the water of the river.
That was one of the plagues as well. Give me verse 19.
Verse 19. And the Lord spake unto Moses, say unto Aaron, take thy rod, and stretch out thine hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon their rivers, and upon their ponds, and upon all their pools of water, that they may become blood.
That they may become blood. So you might try to figure out, why did God send 10 plagues the Egyptians' way? It was to dismantle their government completely, but after 10 would be divine completeness from judgment. Understand that? So the Most High speaks in numbers. He's not throwing just random numbers out there. All right? So now, there's something that we're going to touch on when it comes to how the Lord numbers, when it comes to years and days. It's not the way you and I number years and days. All right, let's get that in 2 Peter 3 and verse 8. The book of 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8.
Reading from the book of 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8. But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day.
So the thing you got to understand is this. Who was the firstborn of all creation? Christ. Through Christ, all things were created, as it mentions in the book of Colossians chapter 1. And you got to understand this. If through Christ all things were created, then you must understand that through his creation, and God giving him the authority to create, it says, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as one day. Now this is so heavy right here, because there's certain instances in the Bible that you might feel as though it was literally referring to one day, but it's actually referring to 1,000 years. Now, there's a lot of persons who actually think when they read the book of Genesis, when it says 7 days that all creation was finished, they think it means 7 literal days. No. 7,000 years. Read that verse again for me. Read that verse again. Don't want this to go over your heads.
Reading from the book of 2 Peter, chapter 3 and verse 8. But, beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day.
How many of you thought it was actual 7 days in the book of Genesis? By show of hands. How many thought it was 7 actual days? Everyone used to think that. But then when you understand the Most High speaks through numbers, and there's 1,000 years as one day with the Lord, he doesn't number the day. Remember, he exists outside of eternity. We exist in time and eternity. He exists outside of it. So there's no time where he is. Time does not exist there. But time exists where? Here. That's why when you pray to God, he could erase something that happened in your life years ago, because he exists outside of time. You exist in time. So he can go into your life, back into your past, and remove something that was there. He has the ability to do that. You don't. So those 7 days is actually going into 7,000 years, if you understand. But you got to come up higher to be on that level to get that understanding. So don't turn off the stream just yet. Oh no, Cap is talking craziness. No. Even many of the world's best theologians and scholars, they understand that. So that shouldn't be hard for you to understand. It's not something very outside of the box for you to understand. But it just means you got to step up your thinking higher, step up your spiritual antennas higher. That's all. All right? So now, when it goes into the number 12, I know many of you see that number 12 coming out a lot in the scriptures. 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 apostles, the 12 gates in the New Jerusalem, 12,000 from each tribe, which makes up the 144,000. It's a symbol of divine covenant and government perfection. Again, it's a symbol of divine covenant and government perfection. All right? So let's get that in Revelation 21 and verse 12. We can see the great wall, great and high, how many gates it had.
Reading from the book of Revelations, chapter 21 and verse 12. And had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel.
12 gates with names written thereon, which are the 12 tribes of Israel. Again, symbol of divine covenant, government perfection. All right? You got to understand when it comes to that number 12 is very significant in the eyes of the Most High. Let's get that in Revelation chapter 7 and verse 4. Revelation 7 and verse 4.
Reading from the book of Revelations, chapter 7 and verse 4. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and they were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel.
So 144,000, all right, of all the tribes. How many tribes are there? 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, let's get verse 5.
Verse 5. Of the tribe of Judah were sealed 12,000.
12,000 of the tribe of Judah.
Of the tribe of Reuben were sealed 12,000.
Judah had 12,000. Reuben had 12,000. Come on.
Of the tribe of Gad were sealed 12,000.
And Gad had 12,000. So 12,000 from each of the tribes to make up the 144,000. So again, that number 12 is very significant. A symbol of divine covenant, government, perfection. All right? Good. So now, when it comes to salvation, it's very mathematical in the eyes of the Most High. All right? He says, even all the hairs of your head are numbered. How many of you knew that? Right? Let's get that in the book of Luke 12 and verse 7. Let's get that. Luke chapter 12 and verse 7. Luke chapter 12 and verse 7.
Reading from the book of Luke, chapter 12 and verse 7. But I will forewarn you whom you shall fear. Fear him which after he had killed had power to cast into hell. Yea, I say unto you, fear him.
No, Luke 12 and verse 7. Yes.
Verse 7. But even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear not therefore, ye are of more value than many sparrows.
It says even the very hairs on your head, they are numbered. They are numbered. So what does that show you? Salvation is mathematical. He knows how much hair is on your head. They're numbered. Right? And that's literal. Because Christ was the one who created you. All right? So you cannot receive the covenant if you ignore the divine calendar. All right? So now when it comes to the covenant and built into the covenant, there's specific numbers and codes. All right? Divine numerology. You cannot actually receive that covenant fully if you ignore God's divine calendar. It just won't happen. Right? So now God gives very specific measurements even when it came to the creation of the tabernacle. How many of you knew that? Very specific. You try to figure out why is there such specifics in numbers when it comes to how the Lord specified the tabernacle should be created, right? You're going to find in Exodus 25 and verse 10 how it mentions 2.5 cubits, 1.5 cubits. All right, let's get that. Exodus 25 and verse 10. All right, Exodus 25 and verse 10. The Most High is very specific and strategic when it comes to this. Go ahead, Exodus 25 verse 10.
Reading from the book of Exodus, chapter 25 and verse 10. And they shall make an ark of shittim wood, 2 cubits and a half shall be the length thereof, and a cubit and a half the breadth thereof, and a cubit and a half the height thereof.
See that? 2.5 cubits by 1.5 cubit by 1.5 cubit. All right? Over in Exodus 26 and verse 1, where it mentions the 10 curtains, all right, each 28 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. Let's get it in Exodus 26 and verse 1.
Reading from the book of Exodus, chapter 26 and verse 1. Moreover, thou shalt make the tabernacle with 10 curtains
How many
of fine
curtains?
linen.
How many curtains?
10 curtains of fine twined linen, and blue and purple and scarlet, with cherubims of cunning work shalt thou make them.
So remember, again, we went into that number 10, right? It goes into law and order. That number 10, all right? 10 curtains. Follow me. Even in Exodus 27 and verse 1, where it mentions the altar being 5 cubit longs and 5 cubits wides. Let's get that Exodus 27 verse 1.
Reading from the book of Exodus, chapter 27, verse 1. And thou shalt make an altar of shittim wood, 5 cubits long, 5 cubits broad. The altar shall be 4 square, and the height thereof shall be 3 cubits.
So again, the 10 cubits where we see previously in Exodus 26. Now in Exodus 27, we see now 5 cubits long, 5 cubits wide, 3 cubits high. That 3, again, you see that number 3 coming out again, right? That's going into what? It goes into resurrection, all right? Let's get Hebrews 8 and 5. We're going to show you something. So question, when it comes to Christ, Christ was a shadow of things to what? To come, right? What did Christ foreshadow? The sacrificial law. Follow me, the sacrificial law. What did you have to put your sacrifices on? The altar. All right. Good. We just read about the altar. The height of the altar was how high? 3 cubits high. So again, it's going into a resurrection dimension. Okay, follow me. Hebrews 8 and verse 5.
Reading from the book of Hebrews, chapter 8 and verse 5. Who serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things.
Shadow of heavenly things.
As Moses was admonished of God when he was about to make the tabernacle. For, see, said he, that thou make all things according to the pattern shown to thee in the mount.
According to the pattern that was shown to thee in the mount. So Moses was given specifics, numbers, calculations, right down to the decimal point, because certain things was for shadow of things to come. Follow me. Christ, his death, burial, and resurrection, 3 days, he was a shadow of things to come based off of the sacrificial law. The altar that you put your sacrifices on was how many cubits high? 3 cubits high. Okay? So now, the Most High is very strategic when it comes to his numbering system. But it's if you paying enough spiritual attention to understand the numerology. Remember, God speaks in numbers. And the reason why he even does that, and the way in which he does that, is so that everything that he's about to do, it's laid out right there before you, but most cannot see it. They just read the Bible like a fairy tale. They read the Bible like a storybook. You could even pinpoint and see certain things that's going to happen in the future based off of the numerology of the things that happened in the past. Remember, we just read in Hebrews 8 verse 5, who serve unto the example of the shadow of heavenly things. Christ was that shadow. That heavenly things that Moses received the instructions to build this thing a certain depth, height, and width. But you got to be paying attention. So now, when it comes to that 14 number, 14, that generation cycle of 14, all right? We can see coming out in Matthew 1 and verse 17, all the generations of Abraham to David. Is how many generations we're going to find out. Matthew chapter 1 and verse 17.
Reading from the book of Matthew chapter 1 verse 17. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations.
How many generations?
14 generations.
14 generations. Read on.
And from David until the carrying away into Babylon are 14 generations. And from the carrying away into Babylon unto Christ are 14 generations.
There are 14 generations when it comes to the carrying away of Israel into Babylon, right? Unto Christ, meaning up to the time when Christ came, when he was born. It's 14 generations. So you have 3 cycles of 14 generations. You have from Abraham to David. That's 14 generations. You have from David to the time when Israel went into exile, 14 generations. And from the time Israel went into exile to the time of when Christ was born, you have 14 generations. So what's the hidden pattern behind that? You take those 14 generations of each of those periods, right? How many periods? 3 periods of 14 generations. So 14 by 3 is how much? 42. Right? Good. So now 42 actually matches the exact amount of encampments in the wilderness. When you go back to Numbers 33, right? Let's get that, Numbers 33. The amount of encampments that Israel sojourned through those generational wilderness to fulfill the promises. 42 exact encampments. All right? It matches the same 42 generations to Christ. Let's get that. Numbers 33. Go ahead. You could start me off at verse. Start me off at verse. Well, really, it's the whole chapter, but let's just get a couple of the encampments. All right. Start me off at verse 3.
Reading from the book of Numbers, chapter 33, starting at verse 3. And they departed from Ramsey in the first month on the 15th day of the first month. On the morrow after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with a high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians.
Read on.
Verse 4. And the Egyptians buried all their firstborn, which the Lord has smitten among them, upon their gods. Upon their gods also the Lord executed judgment.
So the Lord executed judgment upon the Egyptians. Read on.
Verse 5. And the children of Israel removed from Ramsey and pitched in Succoth.
They pitched in Succoth. So that's one encampment there. Read on.
And they departed from Succoth and pitched in Etham.
That's 2 encampments right there. They pitched in Etham. Read on.
Which is the edge of the wilderness. And they moved from Etham and turned again unto Pihamoth. So
that's another encampment again. The 4th one. Read on.
And they departed from Pihamoth and passed through the midst of the sea into the wilderness, and went 3 days' journey in the wilderness of Etham and pitch of Marah.
So that's another one. Did you get verse 7?
Yes.
Read 7 again for
and
me.
And they removed from Etham and turned again unto Piharoth.
Read on.
Which is before Baal-zephon. And they pitched before Migdol.
That's another encampment again right there. Read on.
And they departed from before Piharoth and passed to the midst of the sea into the wilderness, and went 3 days' journey in the wilderness of Etham and pitch of Marath.
That's another encampment again. Read on.
And they removed from Marath and went unto Elim, and in Elim were 12 fountains of water, and 70 palm trees, and they pitched there.
Y'all realize numbers coming out there? Read that again for me.
And they removed from Mirat and went unto Elam, and in Elam were 12 fountains of water.
12 fountains of water, come on.
And 70 palm trees.
70 palm trees, come on.
And they pitched there.
Read on.
And they removed from Elam and encamped by the Red Sea.
That's another encampment again. Read on.
And they removed from the Red Sea and encamped in the wilderness of Sin.
Read.
And they took their journey out of the wilderness of Sin and camped into Dovkan.
Read on.
And they departed for Dovkan and encamped in Alosh.
Ooh, so you see that? This is almost about 15 encampments there so far, you know. When you read from there, go down to the last verse, they would have totaled 42 encampments. Right? Now remember what we said. From Abraham to David, that's how many generations? 14. From David to the time where Israel were exiled, that's 14 generations. And from the time Israel was in exile to the time when Christ was born, that's how many generations? 14. So that 14 times the 3 equals to the 42. So that 42 encampments, right, which is paralleling those 14 generations, right, and it matches. Also, when it comes to Revelation 13 and verse 5, let's get that. The 42 months, the power was given to the beast. Let's get that. Revelation 13 and verse 5.
Reading from the book of Revelations, chapter 13 and verse 5. And there was given unto him in the mouth, and there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and powers given unto him to continue 42 months.
Ooh, 42 months. That's it on that? 42 months. So 42 months. The power was given to the beast, right? That 42 is transition, testing, and fulfillment. Again, it's transition, testing, and fulfillment. All right? So that was Revelation chapter 13 and verse 5. Now, let's read Revelation 13 and verse 18 so we can understand something when it comes to the number of the beast.
Reading from the book of Revelation, chapter 13 and verse 18. Here is wisdom. Let him that had understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man.
It is the number of a?
Of a man.
Okay, good.
And his number is 666.
Good. So that 666 is the number of a man. Who is that man? It's talking about the man of sin. It says the man of sin has already been revealed, meaning the man of sin, right? He goeth into perdition, right? Now, that man of sin, exalting himself as though he is God. That number 6, right, is the number of a man. 666 goes into false perfection. Because, let me break something down for you really quickly. When you go back to Genesis 1, when it shows you that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. When you read in the Hebrew, all of the Hebrew characters that make up the word Yahweh is 7. The word heaven, the Hebrew characters, is 7. Right? So in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the word earth in Hebrew, when you go to the Hebrew word for earth, right? I think it's eros. But that is Eros would be a Greek word. But when you go back to the Hebrew word for earth, it's 7 Hebrew characters. So 777, that 777 goes into what? Divine what? Perfection. Right? Now, that 666 is just an off-brand replica of 777. Follow me. So, the 6 that represents a man, and the 666 is false perfection. It's comparable to the 2/3 that will follow Satan. Okay, because remember, give me that precept that mentions the 2/3. All right, when it mentions 2 parts. All right, it's in Zechariah. Let's get that. It's Zechariah 13. Yes, Zechariah 13 and verse 8. The book of Zechariah 13 and verse 8.
Reading from the book of Zechariah, chapter 13 and verse 8. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die.
2 parts therein shall be cut off and die.
But the third shall be left therein.
But the third shall be left therein. So 2/3. That's, if you divide 2 by 3, that's 0.666. So that 666 again is what? That false perfection, that amount that's going to follow the enemy, follow Satan, right? Follow me. 777 is divine perfection. 666 is just an off-brand replica of the 777. But the Most High using those numbers to show you that if anyone that's following the beast, following the enemy, following Satan, they're following an off-brand of perfection, right? The 2/3 that will follow Satan, right? Now, when it comes to even Nebuchadnezzar's dimensions of the image that he wanted his servants to make, it was 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide in Daniel chapter 3. Let's get that. Daniel chapter 3. Now, Nebuchadnezzar wanted people to do what? Worship him. See him as a god. Build a statue. Reverence the statue. Bow anytime you hear the flute playing, you have to bow to the statue. Right? He ordered it to be 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide. Daniel 3 and verse 1.
Reading from the book of Daniel, chapter 3 and verse 1.
Come on.
Nebuchadnezzar, the king, made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits.
60 cubit, that's 60 cubits.
And the breadth thereof 6 cubits.
And the breadth thereof, meaning the what? The width. 6 cubits. Read on.
He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon.
In the province of Babylon. So now, that 6 goes into man-made rule and rebellion. Again, man-made rule and rebellion. And even to now, Nebuchadnezzar, why was that on his spirit to make it 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide. The Most High put it on his spirit so that we can read these things and realize the patterns and the numbers that the Most High speaks through. Now, number 6, you got to pay attention to it. Now, Nebuchadnezzar may not have known why he chose for it to be that way, but the Most High put it on his spirit to do that. Just like today, there's a lot of persons who use 6 to represent what they're doing. Like I know a lot of you who, you're watching this class right now, you may be familiar with the hip-hop star Drake. He called himself the 6th God. It's all going into rebellion. It's all going into a falsehood of perfection. It's going into the 2/3 who's going to follow Satan. Now, for those of you that listen to dancehall music in Trinidad, and they call themselves what? The 6th crew or the 6th gang or the 6. Lots of youngsters using that 6 right now. They're throwing up the 6, saying they're with the 6, they're with the 6, they're with the 6. Pay attention. The Most High is trying to show y'all something and speak through these numbers. That 6 represents, again, man-made rule and rebellion. You understand that? So make no mistake about it. Nebuchadnezzar ordered that thing to be 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide. It's for a reason. Okay? So now, even when it comes to the Passover and unleavened bread, when we read Leviticus 23, let's get that. Leviticus 23. Leviticus chapter 23. Leviticus chapter 23. All right. Start me off at verse 3.
Reading from the book of Leviticus, chapter 23 and verse 3.
Start from verse 2.
Verse 2. Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocation, even these are my feasts.
He said, these are my feasts. So these are holy gatherings. Convocations means gatherings. Read on.
6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of rest.
So you see that? 7 days, Sabbath of rest. You rest on the Sabbath day. Come on.
And holy convocation, you shall do no work therein. It is a Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings.
Good. It's the Sabbath of the Lord. But the Sabbath isn't a high holy day. It's a holy day, but it's not one of the high holy days. All right? Read on.
Verse 4. These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their season.
Read.
In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's prayer, is the Lord's Passover. And the 15th day of the same month is a feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread.
So 2 major high holy days right there, the Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread. All right, read on.
Verse 7. In the first day you shall have an holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein.
Read.
Verse 8. But you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days. In the 7th day is an holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein.
Read on.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when ye come into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruit of your harvest.
Sheaf of the first fruits of the harvest, come on.
Unto the priest.
Unto the priest. So we're about to keep first fruits coming up next week. But, the Most High, just to give a little, touch on that for a little bit. When it comes to Feast of First Fruits, it's about giving the Lord your first, giving the Lord your best. Offering unto the Lord what is considered to be your best. Right? Not picking up something off the ground and being like, yeah, this is what I'm going to offer for the Most High as, my best. No, you give him your first and you give him his best because he deserves it. He gave you the ability to earn. He gave you the ability to have life. You should give back to him the best. He requires the best. Unblemished, unspotted, that's what you give to him when it comes to Feast of First Fruits. And Feast of First Fruits is about presenting yourself in a spirit of excellence, giving your best, all right, offering your best. Think of it that way. Read on.
Verse 8. And you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days. In the 7th day is a holy convocation. You shall do no civil work therein. Sorry.
What verse you at? You were at verse 11.
And he shall weave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted of you, to be accepted for you. On the morrow, after the Sabbath, the priest shall weave it.
Read on.
And you shall offer that day when you weave the sheaf, and he lamb without blemish of the first year of the burnt offering unto the Lord. And the meat offering thereof shall be 2/10 deal of fine flour mingled with oil, and an offering made by fire unto the Lord for a sweet savor.
Read.
And the drink offering thereof shall be of wine, and the 4th part of an hin.
So it's about offering the best unto the Lord, right? Read on.
Verse 14. And ye shall eat neither bread nor parched corn nor green ears until the same day that ye have brought an offering unto your God. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generation in all your dwellings.
So we're literally reading about the 7 feasts of the Most High, right? Read on.
Verse 15. And you shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, for the day that ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Shabbats shall be complete.
Shall be?
Complete.
Shall be complete. 7 again. Perfection, completion. Read on.
Verse 16. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall ye number 50 days, and you shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord.
So that number 50 goes into Jubilee as well. All right. It's another completion number as well that the Most High uses as well. All right. 50. Read on.
Verse 17. You shall bring out your habitation 2 wave loaves of 2/10 deals, and shall be of fine flour. They shall be baked with leaven. They are the first fruits unto the Lord.
They are the what?
First fruits unto the Lord.
They are the first fruits unto the Lord. So it's all about giving the Lord your best when it comes to first fruits. Come on, verse 18.
Verse 18. And you shall offer without bread 7 lambs without blemish of the first year.
Without what?
Without blemish.
Without blemish. Read on.
And 1 young bullock and 2 rams. They shall be for a burnt offering unto the Lord, with their meat offering and their drink offering, even an offering made by fire, a sweet savor unto the Lord.
Some people want to give to the Lord just whatever little thing they could muster up, whatever little scragglings they could just muster up and then be like, here, I'm going to give that to the Lord. He got to accept that. He don't have to take that. He didn't accept that from Cain. Why should he accept that from you? Some people, when it comes to offering, anything to the Lord, they'll be like, well, this is all I got. No, he requires the best from you. That's what first fruits actually mean. The first pickings. First, he got first dibs on what he considers to be your best, your first. But you want to give him meager scraggles, meager dregs. I mean, you're not in the spirit. That's not the spirit of the Most High that's on you. That's the spirit of what? It's not the spirit of excellence. It's the spirit of mediocrity. Cain had that same spirit. Right? Read on.
Verse 19. Then you shall sacrifice one kid of the goats for a sin offering, and 2 lambs of the first year for a sacrifice of peace offerings. Verse 20. And the priest shall wave them with the bread of the first fruit for a wave offering before the Lord. With the 2 lambs, they shall be holy to the Lord for the priest.
Jump down to verse 23. 23.
Verse 23. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, in the first day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets and holy convocation.
So now you have the Feast of Trumpets. Come on.
You shall do no servile work therein.
No servile work therein.
But you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord.
Read on.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Also on the 10th day of the 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement.
Day of atonement. Right? So we're familiarizing you not only with that the Lord has 7 high holy days, but what they are. Because some of you never heard of some of these before in your life. That's why we're reading it. Why is kept reading? We're reading it because some of you, you're not familiar with it. You don't know what it is. You've never heard it before. And you don't know the feast days. You pretend like you know what the feast days are, but you don't really know. You hear them being spoken about, but you don't really know. We're reading about them now. Go ahead, read on. So that was Feast of Trumpets. We got Day of Atonement. All right. Verse 27.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Also on the 10th day of the 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be a holy convocation unto you. And ye shall afflict your souls, and offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord.
So the Day of Atonement is when you afflict your soul through fasting. Fasting from sundown, the first evening to the second evening of the Day of Atonement, 24-hour day fasting, all right? And you got to convocate as well. Read on.
Verse 28. And ye shall do no work in that same day, for it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before the Lord your God.
Good. It's a Day of Atonement. You don't work on that day. Read on.
Verse 29. For whatsoever soul it be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, he shall be cut off from among his people.
So if you don't do the Day of Atonement, you're going to be what?
Cut off from among his people.
So you got to do the Day of Atonement. It's required of you. You can't skip out on it, pass it up. It ain't optional. Okay? Read on.
Verse 30. And whatsoever soul it be that doeth any work in that same day, the same soul will I destroy from among his people.
Good. Read.
You shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings.
Statute forever. Jump down to verse 33.
Verse 33. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of the 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles.
Feast of Tabernacles. Read on.
For 7 days unto the Lord.
For how many days?
7 days unto the Lord.
So we got to keep the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days. So again, we just completed 7 high holy days coming from the Passover down to Tabernacles. In the Feast of Tabernacles, you're supposed to now keep it for 7 days. Okay, divine completion again. Read on.
Verse 35. On the first day shall be a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. Verse 36. 7 days ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. And on the 8th day shall be a holy convocation unto you. And ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord.
So you got to understand, when it comes to these 7 feasts, it's very significant because the 7 feasts, it also represents God's redemptive timeline. Okay? So now, what verse you was at? Yeah, read on.
It is a solemn assembly, and you shall do no servile work therein. Verse 37. These are the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord, a burnt offering and a meat offering, a sacrifice and drink offerings, everything unto his day.
Upon his day. Understand that. So 7 feasts, God redemptive timeline. So now, God didn't just write a book, all right? He encoded a scroll, all right? So these prophecies are puzzles. His numbers are keys. This is what you got to understand. So when it comes to God's divine numerology, there's codes written into it, codes written into the covenant. The reason why he put the altar to build a certain way, certain cubits high, certain cubits wide. The reason why he told Moses to go on Mount Sinai 40 days, 40 nights. The reason why Yahushua the Christ, he went into the wilderness to be tempted 40 days. All right? All of these things are very significant, even when it comes to the beast. Okay, that number of that man of sin, 666, very significant. All of it. But are you spiritually in tune to understand God's divine numerology? Are you spiritually adapt to be able to have the capacity to intake what the Lord is showing you through his scriptures? That is the question. So we're going to end it there today. Israel, all praises to the Most High. And we just want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. All right? Be sure to, send your comments, questions, queries, concerns to our email, tocisraelites@gmail.com. Follow us on our social medias, Facebook and Instagram. It's all the same, TOC Israelites. All praises to the Most High. Be sure to give your donations, your alms, your offerings, whether you're on PayPal or whether you're on National Bank, local, Mo Banking. The information is right there in the description box below. And we pray that today's class, it opened your eyes on a different level to show you that the Most High is very strategic. He's very calculated when it comes to his divine numbers and numerology. All right? These classes are designed now to bring you up higher, step up on a higher spiritual plateau so that you can open up your spiritual antennas even more on a higher level. Yes? All praises to the Most High. So with that, we're going to close out. All right? We say shalom to you and your families once again. Happy Sabbath, and continue enjoying the rest of your Sabbath. All praises to the Most High. Shalom.